this evening, and I just wanted to say thank you for everyone took the time to come out this evening to watch the film. Did you all like the film? Okay, so that's good to hear because as you all know, it is Native American Heritage Month, and Indigenous stories and representation is very important because our stories are at the forefront this month, but they should be at the forefront every month. And so Native voices and stories are stories that everyone should hear. So I'm glad we got to watch Bing Thunder. And so with that being said, I'll introduce our panelists for the Q&A. First will be our host, Angelo Baca, who is one of the few Native educators at RISD. So please come out, Angelo. And now for the person that everyone has been waiting for, the star of Bing Thunder, Sherenté Mishitashin Harris. And so we'll begin the Q&A, and hopefully we'll have enough time for questions from the audience at the end. But for now, Angelo, take it away.
Thank you so much, Chloe. Really appreciate the introduction and the warm reception here, and really grateful to be able to help ask some questions and follow up here with Sherenté, because I know that you have some amazing recent developments where you're going back to school at Brown, right?
Yes.
And I saw the Native graduation, and it was so beautiful with your family there, all the support, all the love, all the prayers. And I didn't really know you or your family yet, but just by that, I was like blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, the relationships, the love, the support, just the incredible amount of energy and good, positive, life that's being injected into this whole community, RISD, Brown, Providence, and the whole family, just a part of that. That's the first thing that that touched my heart. I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to be close to all of them. I want to know all of them. And so just really wonderful story, fantastic sharing this with us. And
thank you.
So, Sherenté, and congratulations on all of your successes. So I'm going to jump right in. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Angelo. I'm Navajo and Hopi. I'm faculty here at RISD. And so I'm a filmmaker as well, but I really want to foreground the story of Sherenté here. So let's talk a little bit about the meaning of Two-Spirit. What is that to the audience that you can kind of explain a little bit from an Indigenous perspective, what that means?
So being Two-Spirit is very different, I think, from people's normal conceptions of gender identity. Being Two-Spirit is really, it is a contemporary umbrella term, and it is a means by which Indigenous people communicate that their sexuality, their gender identity is inextricable from our traditions, from our ceremony, from our cosmological worldview. And as a result, you kind of see glimmers of this in the documentary, but so much of who I am is defined by not only my roles in my family, but within my tribal community. And my grandmother was just speaking the other day that my first language was Narragansett, and that growing up in the house, I was speaking so much Narragansett language, and how that frames your entire worldview. I think that coming out, the fear that comes with that was quelled by the fact that my family immediately was able to meet me there and not only accept me, but tell me that this is a sacred part of who we are as Narragansett people. And so in different tribal communities, there'll be different language. So I might call myself No Wa'ashbat, which means he who is effeminate, or Nisa Manatuag is the Anishinaabe term that was used to create the term two-spirit, but in our language, it's the same thing. Nisa Manatuag, two-spirit. So yes, it's usually takes people a bit of a learning curve to get their heads around two-spirit.
Absolutely. And I really think that there's so much to learn about true diversity in Indigenous communities, whether it's gender, sexuality, identity. And so it's beautiful that you're able to be courageous enough and bold enough to tell your story and just be you, and actually give strength to others who are also looking to be as strong as you. You know, in our culture with Navajos, we say Nadle, and that means both man and woman, and they are seen as sacred beings in our culture. As a matter of fact, they are the culture bearers for some of the most powerful ceremonies that can be done today. So, on one hand, there are a lot of perceptions from the outside world, a lot of Euro-American, Western influences that can be negative. Have you found those kind of influences impacting your own community, or even just maybe your sense of self?
Absolutely, and I think you see a good bit of that in the documentary. So much of the pressures of the outside world is of my chiefest concern, and it is what we see when we see this small group of what turned out to be, a couple older Indigenous men. The girls that I was dancing with, they all were my friends and loved me and supported me, and you see them at one point hugging me. And these people that took great issue with me dancing this way are victims of intergenerational trauma. And colonization is a sickness, and it's something that our communities continue to try to heal from. And I feel that the only way that we can heal from that is ceremony. And our two-spirit people, I think that one of the core aspects of what it means, at least for my people, being two-spirit, is this recognition of Wami na Wamni Tank na Tank Suwag, all our beloved relations. And we say that so often in ceremony, all of our relations being all of creation. And that there's one way of knowing that, which is the cerebral way of, I've now told you this, that we are all beloved relations, and you will now leave and you'll have that in your head. But it's a very different thing to know something with Kawiwonk, the spirit that resides in our brain, than to know that with Michachunk, that spirit that is of our physical body, to know that through embodied experience. And what I think happened was when that protest happened and when I was fancy shawl dancing, for the first time, after so long of being invisible and purposefully trying to make the situation hushed, people saw me, and they didn't just see me, they saw me in a vulnerable state. And you hear stories of people jumping in front of a car or a train to save another person. And when they're asked about it later, they say, I don't know why I did it, but in that moment, I needed to save that person. Because in that moment, that lived, embodied experience reminded them that we are all relations, that that person is really you. And I believe that our Two-Spirit people traditionally lead us into remembering that within our hearts, that the things that we think are the most disparate and disconnected in our world are truly united. And the titles that we wear, like CEO or man or caretaker or intellectual, that these titles, these egoistic ideas, are really illusions that blind us to that fact that underneath it all, we are all one.
That's fantastic. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to ask the last thing, because there's a ton of things to ask you, but such a big part of you, especially in this film and you as a person, is being a dancer. And I can see that it brings you great joy and that it brings your family together. Everybody's like, even in their off moments, they're dancing, right? Like you can just see like, oh, I'm just relaxed, I'm at home and dancing. It's so much a part of you. How does that, make you feel when you're out there, when you're representing yourself, your family, your people, and then doing that also in all the ways that are just independently, honestly you?
So I come from a family of championship dancers, 2 of which are in the room. And my mother and my grandmother. And dance for us, before it is ever competition, I have always been taught that dance is ceremony and sacred ceremony. It is our way of giving thanks and prayer. And when we dance, we do so at our Thanksgivings. And the Narragansett people have 13 Thanksgivings that correlate with our lunar calendar. And one of the powwows that you see there, everything is time in the documentary jumps back and forth throughout, but one of the powwows you see is our August meeting powwow, where we give thanks for the green corn. And during that powwow, our people have had that for 348 years on historic record, but we've been doing it for time immemorial. It's the oldest recorded gathering of its kind. Of course, other tribes have been doing similar events just as long. And there's a reason why dance is so central at these events, and that is because when we dance in the sacred circle with no beginning and no end. We dance to the heartbeat of Mother Earth, that is the drum. When we move our feet, we become like the animal people, wearing their skins and feathers in our hair. And so there is a blurring between all creation, and even amongst the people in the circle, we become like one. When we do our social dances, we dance counterclockwise like the Big Dipper around the North Star, and our hearts closest to the fire. And so all of this is deeply embedded in meaning, of course. But I think what inspires me the most about dance is my parents would do dance classes, not just for our tribal community as I was growing up, but for other tribal communities. And the sharing of that tradition openly. Now, as I've grown older, I am now leading dance classes of my own, and sharing the gift that is dance, that has brought me so much joy, has really changed my life. And I say that dance is prayer. If I was not dancing in a way that was truly thankful for all that I am, then my prayer would be empty and meaningless. And so I have to thank my mother for looking through my sketchbook and finding that drawing of a fancy shawl regalia and gifting me that, and my grandmother gifting me my first headband, and making this dream that we thought was so impossible a reality. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Alrighty, so if we have any questions from the audience, now would be the time to raise your hands, and then someone will bring a mic to you. So, oh, we have one right there.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing your story. My question is, as you shared your film around the country, did you meet other members of the indigenous Two-Spirit community? And if so, what was your experience, and what did you learn from these individuals? Have you maintained contact? Anything you might want to share?
Yes, so there was a point of time where behind the scenes, the things that you don't see in the documentary, the hatred I was getting was so severe, and to my face even, people shouting slurs at me, that I really wanted to give up on dancing. I spent a whole year doing nothing but every single day practicing fancy shawl dance. And the thing about fancy shawl dance is there's a style of dance called the switch dance. And in the switch dance, it's often played up for comedic effect, which is why I did not want to do that, because I felt that this was very serious. The men dance in women's styles and the women dance in men's styles. And you'll see the strongest man fancy shawl dancing, and it is quite a comical sight, because there isn't the gracefulness that I had to take so long to learn from my mother and hone in. And so when I started to hear stories of other Two-Spirit people that had seen me fancy shawl dancing, and they started letting their voices be heard and coming to me and telling me how significant this was for them. There were young people who were so inspired that they said that they were going to go and make a regalia of their own. So many of the Two-Spirit people that I know, they begin dancing as children, and then once they come out, they don't feel welcome in the circle anymore, and decide that that space is not safe for them or meant for them. And there were so many older Two-Spirit people that came to me, or loved ones of Two-Spirit people that have passed, that told me that they wished that they could have lived during the time that I had, because what they went through was far worse than anything I went through. So there was one person in particular, I believe their Instagram is geronimo.louis, and I believe he's Cherhuaca Apache, and he reached out to me. This is just one name among many, and told me how inspired he was in seeing my journey, and then would send me pictures of making the regalia, a fancy shawl regalia, and going out and dancing and having the courage to do that. And even my cousin in my own community that I knew when she had stopped dancing, she just this past year went out into the circle dancing grass dance, and her mother spoke to me about what a difference this has made. And it really is not me. It is my family and all of my relations that came out and made their voices heard, that made this possible, that a change has finally happened.
I think we have time for one more question, so just one more. There's in the front. You have a, you can go ahead.
Is there somebody else?
No, but you need a mic.
I was just going to speak. So from my understanding of what you were just talking about with the term two-spirit, there seems to be a bit of a difference between that and what we would describe as like non-binary or transgender. And I was just wondering, like, I would expect there to be some form of solidarity between people that identify with, you know, either of these titles, like you were saying. But I was wondering, like, if you ever experienced any kind of like conflict or tension between those terms and those communities, and just kind of what your experience has been with the term trans and non-binary and gender fluid and all of those, you know. Thank you.
Right. I think that it all goes back to language, of course, and I touched a little bit on language and even how different our ways of categorizing things are. And I know that at the time, at least, of filming, so much of what I was struggling with was which box are they going to put me in? Which box am I going to end up being stuck in forever? Because how I saw myself and how my family have always saw me is Sherenté, as me, and whether that is male or female or both or beyond that was secondary. I definitely identify with the trans community in many ways, in feeling, I mean, most people recognize me as a trans person as I go about my day to day. And it's a little strange living between the two worlds. And I think that I have nothing but support for my trans brothers and sisters, and I think that much of our experience is the same and much of it is unique. I think it's a continual conversation that I try to grapple with. They're two different worlds, and I think part of that is, unfortunately, these trans and queer people don't have a culture or a society or a history that they come from that has a precedent for any of this, that they can feel affirmed in themselves in knowing that, you know, this isn't something that's radical, because so often I was told that what I was doing was radical and groundbreaking and something new. And really, this is ancient. This is something that goes far beyond me, and I think that's a true gift. And I think it asks an even bigger question as to, I talked to you all about all our beloved relations and our ceremonies, and all of that goes back to a connection to land and place. And I don't have an answer for this, but I think if we want to find healing together, all of us as people, we need to rekindle that relationship. And as people that have been scattered across not only Turtle Island, but the world, even Narragansett people scattered across the world, that is a huge question that we need to grapple with, is how do we go back to the old ways? And what old ways are ours? What homelands are ours? What communities can we dream together? And I thank you all for caring enough about me and my communities that I hope to welcome you all into my community too. So thank you.
So thank you everyone for coming to this screening of Being Thunder. Oh, one more thing.
So I brought a gift for Sherenté, because that's what you do when you come to somebody's homeland. Hint, hint. We're learning tonight, Native American Heritage Month. And so just thank you, Sherenté, for your story, your bravery, your courage, and I just want to gift you like this nice little hummingbird pin because you're a dancer, and so you're light.
And what you don't know is that I was gifted for my graduation a beaded cape and medallion, and that will match my new set.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Some hairpins and a bag, and this was made by my family by hand, so that's yours.
Thank you so much.
So, thank you everybody. Ahiha, Kwakwa, Kantapatash. Thank you so much. We're guests in your house, to the Narragansett. Thank you for letting us be on your land. Thank you, Sherenté.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Alrighty, and that concludes tonight's screening. So thank you everyone for coming. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.